To preface, I typically go grocery shopping around 7 to 8 PM nowadays, as the store is usually less crowded around that time. However, I try not to go out unless I have to because, well, 1, being COVID, and 2, being out after sundown doesn't feel comfortable for my safety, as I'm 5 foot and 110-pound woman. Despite this, the area I live in shopping is what I would consider to be safe, so going for a quick grocery run a little later in the evening has felt okay lately. This one's a bit long, but I've been wondering recently of what could have been. So about 2 weeks ago, I was at my usual grocery store around 7 PM. I read somewhere online that you should make your trips to the store 30 minutes or less, and being the Gemini that I am, I knew I would have to make a list on my phone to follow or I would get distracted. I began my trip in the produce section, essentially only looking up from my phone to step out of people's way or to grab something that was on my list. There were more people in the store than there usually were in the evenings when I go, so I had to make a few laps to wait for people to clear certain areas that I needed to get to. I first realised I needed to do this when I was at the carrot section, but since it was too overcrowded, I figured I'd circle back in a minute or two and grab something on the other side of the section in the meantime. Trying to determine where to go, I looked up from my phone and began walking towards the bananas. On my way to get them, I just kinda looked forward blankly, not really thinking of anything besides the task at hand. This was short-lived because a man in a grey zip-up hoodie and a black baseball hat caught my eye as we walked past one another. I was going one direction and he was going the opposite. Nothing really stood out about him besides the fact that he was looking at me and that he was walking really fast. I didn't think anything of it and kept forth towards the bananas. As I gathered my produce and a few things along the way back to the carrots, I passed the same man again. He made eye contact with me again. Normally, I'm not one to really make eye contact with other people. I'm a mind my business kind of person, but his demeanour just caught my eye. I also noticed that he was the only person in the section not carrying anything. It had to have been at least 3 minutes since we first passed one another, so to think that he was just kind of perusing around and not getting anything was strange. It's not like he just got there either. As I finally get the carrots, I make my way over to the bakery section and the man passed me once again. This time, I didn't make eye contact, but I turn around to see where he was going. This sounds silly, but the way he was moving around the store didn't make any sense. I was working my way from the front to the back, and he was walking erratically in all different directions. There was only one entrance and one exit to the store, so it's not like he could have come in from any other direction. Might I remind you, he still had nothing with him. As I begin to turn my head to see what this man is doing, another guy runs past me wearing all black. Okay, strange. But he ran so close to me that the hair that was in front of my left shoulder was blown behind my back from the gust of air he blew past me. Since I was already turning my head, I fixate to see where this man was going. He had run over to the man that passed me frequently, and they were both looking right at me and talking to one another. They were about 30 feet away from me, so I couldn't make out what they were saying. I also only looked for maybe a second because it was at this point that I started to get pretty anxious. I'd like to mention that I have GAD, so when I'm in suspicious situations that might flare up my anxiety, I really try to talk myself down from anything that might be illogical. I mean, who would follow me around in a grocery store? I wasn't sure what to make of what I was seeing. In an attempt to soothe my anxious thoughts, I decided to continue shopping and try not to fixate on the two men. I looked back down at my phone and I realised that I had forgot to grab lemons from the produce section, so I was irritated that I had to go back. I began walking, head down, when a woman knocked my shoulder. I'm already feeling a myriad of emotions at this point, and to be touched by a stranger during a pandemic? Let's just say I was really annoyed. I looked back up behind me to see who could have been so clumsy enough to knock into a stranger when my eyes locked with the woman who bumped me. Now, this is kind of difficult to explain, but stay with me. It's a pretty popular thing among women to communicate solely through eye contact and body language. Now, I know that all people of all genders do this, but for women specifically, it's different. I've been out with friends that have told me, "Save me from this creep," without saying a single word. So, despite the mask and the distance between us, something in me told me to listen to what she had to say. She rolled her eyes downwards towards the floor, as if a ball were rolling past our feet in the exact direction of the men that were looking at me and lapping me. She didn't look directly at them, but I knew she was indicating she was about to say something about them. She looked back up at me, and in a whisper shout told me, "Heads up." My stomach sank. I now knew that I wasn't just being paranoid. Someone else had noticed something weird was going on. I walked past her to her right and gave her a look to say that I understood what she was saying. It was at this point that I needed to get out of the store without looking panicked or raising suspicions. When I told my boyfriend this story, he questioned why I didn't just leave right there and then. First off, I had a basket full of produce that I needed to pay for. Secondly, I didn't want to raise suspicions or alert these men as to why someone they were following is suddenly running out of the store. So, I swiftly begin to navigate the aisles to gather a few more things that are on my list. As I moved through the store and looked down the aisle to see where the items were, one of the men were in each aisle walking towards me. Every aisle I went down, one of them were there. I was fucking terrified. I decided it was time to go. I went to the self-checkout and hauled ass. I did my best to appear calm, but I know I looked frantic. Since it was dark outside, I did not feel comfortable walking to the car by myself. Once I was done, I approached 3 employees chatting amongst each other. I luckily got the attention of a female store manager and thought on my feet. I told her that my ex-boyfriend was in the store following me and that I needed to be walked out. In hindsight, I probably should have alerted them to what was actually going on, but I wanted to get the fuck out of there. No questions asked. Thankfully, she did not ask any questions. She said, "Oh shit. Okay, I'm getting security to walk you to your car." And as the guard appeared from the back of the line, waiting to use the self-checkout, so did the 2 men. They made eye contact and broke left and right. When I tell you I almost pissed myself, my god, my heart was in my throat. Luckily, I didn't see the men outside. The last I saw of them was by the self-checkout. The security guard kindly walked me to my car and made sure I drove away safely, to which I am so ever grateful for. I called my boyfriend sobbing since my anxiety was so high at this point. He advised me to take a different route home and make 4 right turns if I thought anyone was following me. For precaution, I stayed at a friend's house that night because I was so anxious. I'm so grateful nothing happened to me and that I'm here today, but I cannot thank the woman who warned me in the store enough for validating my suspicions. If you witness anything that looks sketchy or weird, please tell or warn someone. I haven't heard about any kidnappings or crimes towards women in my area recently, thank goodness. It just scares me to think what could have possibly happened and what kind of people are out there. I think it goes without saying that I am no longer going shopping after sundown, nor at that store. I'm blanking on where I heard this, but I think it really applies to how I felt that night. It's better to be safe than sorry, and to be paranoid than dead.